I think that concept, just for multi-partner orchestration, it's a really good consideration more broadly, I guess, to have, is to think about your overall ecosystem is not just the organization itself, but also all those surrounding partners and making sure everyone is working in step in order to be able to reach our goals. I think another kind of general point that's highlighted there is the importance on people. Adam talked earlier about the importance of focusing on people as it relates to our privacy strategy, really gaining that trust, building that brand preference as a result. But also with multi-partner orchestration, the focus on people to be central to your execution strategy as well. And the strategies being used there in order to be able to operationalize a lot of the concepts we've been talking about. And so to discuss some of those additional strategies and some examples from the enterprise of how those strategies have been able to be employed in order to be able to realize some of these privacy-centric transformational concepts. I'd like to introduce our next speaker to kind of join me just in a conversation around these different strategies. So please welcome Shaafi Khokhar from Haleon. Shaafi is the Global Director for Operations Director, Media and Engagement Platforms.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So I guess just to start, the title and everything, a little bit of a mouthful. Can you explain to us a little bit, what exactly that means, how you're, kind of situated within the organization to focus on these, privacy topics?
Yeah, of course. Similar to what Amy said at Google, titles are a bit hyperinflated at Haleon as well. So basically it's operationalizing all of the ad tech kind of structure, making sure that any type of marketing that is being executed is all connected, inclusive of privacy, tagging, websites, that kind of stuff, basically. So everything MarTech, ad tech related is connected to that.
Okay. There's a lot there.
Yeah, quite a bit.
And I know for general topics, in working with you for a number of years and kind of going back to some of the first initial foundational types of activities on that journey towards privacy-centric marketing. One of those first elements was that initial rollout of the consent experience and the consent architecture. Can you speak a little bit to just some of the business challenges faced, how you overcame them? I just feel like those can be really instructive for dealing with any kind of privacy changes moving forward.
Yeah, so we're going back 5 years now, I think. So a lot happened 5 years ago, right? GDPR legislation kind of came into play. Haleon was then known as GSK Consumer Healthcare, which was entangled with the pharma business as well. So it was aligning, and a lot of our ad tech kind of back end was kind of interlinked with the pharma architecture. And that caused a lot of kind of problems because whatever pharma was doing, consumer healthcare had to kind of follow suit. Right? So to align everything, we had to not only listen to the pharma legal team, but also the consumer legal team. We had to bring in the ad tech specialists into this as well. Back then, there wasn't a privacy specialist, right? It was just the lawyers trying to figure out how it's going, and us trying to explain to the lawyers, this is what a cookie is, this is how you move forward, etc. And that took a while, right? And one of the first things that we had to do was categorize all our cookies, understand what is this cookie, and that was using things like Tag Inspector, scanning our sites, looking at what tags are on our websites, and then being able to categorize those, what is it? Is it an advertising cookie? Is it something else, et cetera, et cetera. That was like the skeleton kind of piece there, and the foundational element there, which took a very long time. Yeah. Right? Because back then we had about 1,300 websites, so it took us a while to kind of scan, clean, and all that stuff. So that was kind of the foundational piece. Then it was about educating everyone to get everybody on the same level, right? So making sure that marketing, tech, privacy, legal, everybody's on board to understand why we're doing this. Obviously, we don't want to get fined 4% of global revenue, but also why is it so important to have cookies on our websites at that point? So I think that was the foundational element of the issues that we had in the beginning.
Okay. So really, I guess just from a process standpoint, and this could be universal, right, for any initiatives coming forward, really get all of the necessary information on the table, explain it to necessary stakeholders, and then build that education in order to be able to build, from what Jaime was talking about earlier, alignment across all those different teams.
Yes.
Now, kind of on that same topic of the consent management architecture, Adam talked in our first session about the importance of placing the consumer at the center of that whole experience. And we talked about how much of an opportunity is there because so many organizations do it poorly today. I know this was something that you had really approached a couple of years ago in going through and analyzing consent experiences, doing some testing to be able to understand, what worked best for consumers, what gave them the most levels of transparency. As more organizations are beginning to think about doing that type of an activity, can you just talk us through a little bit about how you had approached that when doing that testing?
I think before I get into that, it's very important to kind of focus on consumer at the heart, right? I know this is what every company is trying to do right now, but we already had decided that about 4 years ago that that's the company that we want to be. We want to be consumer focused, right? So I think that was fundamental foundation set point for everybody to be aligned on that. Get aligned, sorry. But what we did was we did a review of different platforms out there. We decided to use InfoTrust in the end, and we did a global rollout. Now, when GDPR again was launched initially, there was different legislations and within different markets, coming up with different solutions, etc. Obviously causing haywire with our legal teams because nobody could decide what we should do. But I think what we did was we said, all right, let's just take the most complicated market out there. At that time, it was Germany. Take that and blanket apply it across every single market across Europe, and with knowing how we want to do things. Now, that was a fundamental step to put as an initial step, right? Get that done and sort it out. Then it was about how can we evolve this? How do we do test and learns around this, right? So we did multitude of tests around this to see. Does the color of the message make a difference? Should we do a cookie wall? Should it be in the middle? Should the notification be in the middle? Should it be on the side? Should it be on the right side, left side? Should the accept button be a different color to the decline button? Do we even need a decline button? All these questions were coming up, and we tried to do a test on every single piece, right? And one of the tests that stands out actually was on a mobile device, the cookie banner was coming up, but does putting the accept button on the right, because most of the population is right-handed, of the screen make it easier for consumers to just click accept? And we actually saw an uplift of that. Just putting the accept button on the right-hand side caused people to click accept. Right? So it was a good kind of test to do. But that's the kind of mentality that you need to have, is the ever-evolving test and learn.
I think it's important to note kind of the impetus for a lot of those tests, right? Being truly consumer-centric. I think a lot of organizations that I talk to today go into those types of tests, and their question is, how do I increase the rate of acceptance? When truly the question should be, as Adam was talking about before, how do I best inform the user so that they can make the best kind of informed choice? I was throw that out there. Just keep that in mind, and for any of these types of tests that are being run, especially with those types of experiences. And as we saw with the study, the Google and Ipsos study, that rate of brand engagement and brand loyalty will rise as a result. You don't need to go for just the cheap acceptance rate improvement for
one thing
success.
I can add to that as well is, when GDPR did hit, obviously analytics dropped massively, right? I started freaking out. Oh my God, I've lost all my data. How am I going to get over this? What we did was well, guys, calm down first off, right? We'll get the data, but do you want crap data, or do you want data that's actually going to be meaningful to you, right? So you want data that's, that where consumers are accepting something, they are explicitly saying, yeah, it's okay, right, for me to share my data. That's the usage that you want, because the people who decline, they're just not interested, right? So you don't really want that information, theoretically. But just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, especially, I mean, as building models and everything, you want quality data. Now, another concept that you've mentioned a couple of times is the concept around standardization.
Yep.
And as we think about getting more value from less data, that need for standardization across data sources is paramount in order to be able to integrate data, create those models, and just extract more insights. Now, I know that's something that you've also helped tackle as kind of an initiative within the organization. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you've approached trying to come to a place of uniform taxonomies and standardization across first-party data sources?
Yeah, so what was happening was, bit of background. We had a lot of data, right? All of a sudden, we're getting all this data, but it's inconsistent in the 50 plus systems that we use. Mm-hmm. Right? So the idea was that we want to create this taxonomy, right? In essence, it's a master data management solution, right? But specifically for marketing, because the organization is trying to do it at enterprise level. Good luck to them. But from a marketing standpoint, it's just making simple things like, our brand is Sensodyne, for example. So making sure that it's written with a capital S, mm-hmm. and it's Sensodyne. It's not Sensodyne with a lowercase or the brand code or things like that. It's specifically going into fundamentals and aligning that across all different systems so that you're able to report better on this, right? And this isn't only just for marketing, media activation. This is also for your website stuff, when you're building audiences, you're then having holistic kind of approaches on this to say standardized, mm-hmm. across everything. So right, this is the naming convention around this is the brand, this is the kind of the logic behind it, and it's work and play at the mm-hmm. moment, right? But I think we're moving forward in strides, to be honest, on this, and we're getting better data, and we're able to better analyze that data as well now that we're having that consistency across everything. Yeah.
One big challenge that I always hear in this standardization type of an initiative is enforcement. When working with, as Amy was just talking, multiple partners, how to enforce the following of those standards in order to be able to then realize that value. Is there any particular insights that you have there for effective enforcement?
When you're working with agencies and they're doing work on your behalf, mm-hmm. that's easy. You just put it in their contract, right? So you put something in to penalize them. It's the internal structure that's the problem, and I think it's change management, right? In general, it's you need to enforce the rules. You have to set rules. But the governance around that is the most important piece, right? Mm-hmm. So the way that we handle it right now is everything has to go through one specific team. Mm-hmm. Right? It is a bottleneck, but we've set the governance in such a way that it's done within a couple of hours of the request coming in, right? So whether that's adding a new brand, adding a new campaign, or whatever, right? It happens within a few hours. And that automatically then gets pushed into different systems because it's all connected.
Okay.
So that standardization helps, but the governance around that is ever evolving, mm-hmm. right? And it's something that even our chief marketing officer is, adamantly looking at to say, how can we improve this even more? Mm-hmm. But I think it's cross-team collaboration, making sure that it's across the board, right? Across not just marketing, with the brand managers and everybody else, but across legal and everybody, so everyone's on board and they know, right, this is the reason why we're doing this and this is why it's so important to do this.
Yeah. I mean, that comes back to one of those initial points that you made just for getting the need on the table, explaining this is why we're doing this, and then educating all the necessary stakeholders. Now, a lot of kind of initiatives there. You mentioned things around cultural mindset shifts, you mentioned things for global consent architecture, standardization of data across all the partners and everything. These are massive undertakings. From an organizational structure perspective, you mentioned a little bit about kind of teams and how they're set up in order to be able to facilitate all these things. What do you think have been some of the keys to be able to accomplish, even just begin moving on the roads of transformation for those types of initiatives?
I think it's similar to what's been discussed already, right? It's getting all the people in one room. Right?
Yep.
Legal, media, marketing, everybody into one room, tech, so that you're all aligned on everything. Mm-hmm. Right? What we did internally as well is not only just get everybody in a room and explain things to them, but actually built a governance team around this where one person is a representation from each department.
Okay.
And we come together, we spoke about kind of tags, kind of what should be on our websites, kind of governance around that, writing a safe list and a block list, right? Saying this is what's allowed on our tags, and this is it on our sites, and this is it. If you want to add a tag onto our site, you need to go through this process.
Okay.
So defining that process, right, where all those teams are aligned, that this is the process that needs to be done, right? And then communicating that out to the agencies and anyone else who's responsible for creating these tags, right? But that helps us from not only cleaning things up on our sites, but maintenance of that governance as well to make sure that there's no rogue tags coming on our sites, etc. And that continuous use of Tag Inspector, sorry, I keep plugging it, but it's been a game changer for us, right? Because we're able to now identify where those rogue tags are coming from. If there's a third-party pixel firing that we shouldn't be, or a fourth-party call being made, we're able to identify immediately. We're able to rectify that immediately, right? So that is music to our legal team's ears, right? They're happy about that, and I think that helps massively for us.
Okay. So kind of at a high level, just defining that global structure and the standards that we've talked about throughout the day, and then putting process around it in order to be able to enforce those standards, kind of being the key there. One other thing we talked about a little bit earlier today with Jaime was that test, learn, and scale framework. I know you've also kind of been successful in running a lot of things through a similar type of a framework. Can you tell us a little bit just how you've approached that concept?
So anything that's new, we want to test it out, right? We want to be able to see, does it work for us, does it not, right? I think one example specifically that I can talk about today is consent mode. It's worked brilliantly for Nestle, I think. For us, not so much, right? We initially wanted to blanket roll this out across Europe because we thought it was amazing. It gives us that additional kind of additional kind of oomph on what consumers are doing on our websites. So that was the initial plan that we went in with. What actually happened was when we did the test, because we wanted to do this test again in Germany. But after the test, we realized actually the results that we're getting are not consistent due to the amount of visitors that we're getting on our website, because you need a certain threshold basically for this to work. So based off of that, we then redesigned this and said actually there's only about 8 websites in Europe that would benefit from this. So let's take this as a learning and apply this, but pivot basically here to do what matters most basically. Yeah. Because that's where we can benefit the most as well.
Yeah. I think that's a super important point. Too often in these types of discussions, we always highlight like these are the tests that worked. I think there's so many great learnings that can be had from these tests that don't work, and then understanding why so that we can then apply those learnings to future types of solutions that come up. Because the one truth about this environment is there's no shortage of new solutions that are kind of coming online that people want to sell to you. So it's really understanding what are the kind of concepts and the pieces of those solutions that can work for your organization to be able to narrow that focus and invest in the right things.
And it did cause a bit of problems as well, actually, because when we decided, right, this is the solution, we're going to cut this, we're going to go down on these 8 websites, caused a bit of havoc as well in those local markets. It's like, well, hang on. So I'm going to get so much data for this brand. What about these other brands? I'm going to lose out. And basically I had to educate them to say, well, you either want this data or you don't, right? So what's it going to be? Right? For now, cookies are going to die eventually, right? But for now, you can gain on this brand, this X amount, right? Would you not want that? And that's when they were like, okay, So it made a bit of a change.
Yes, progress is good.
Exactly. You just have to break it down.
Nothing is perfect. Progress is good. So I guess shifting to a little bit more kind of forward-looking, are there any new technologies, opportunities that you kind of see on the horizon that are particularly exciting?
I think there's 2 that stands out the most for me. One is what Tyler talked about already today, server-side tag management. Super excited to be testing that out. We're beginning to kind of structure it to do a test. Whether that's a success or not, don't know. But it takes, setting up server-side tag management, just being completely transparent. in a big organization, it is very difficult to do because there's a lot more stakeholders than what we did with just putting a cookie consent on our websites, right? There's a whole other departments that come out of the woodwork here. So just be prepared for that. But you need to be persistent because this is the future, right? If you don't test it now, you're going to be screwed later because you're going to be behind, basically, right? So you have to test it now. So server-side tag management is one. The second one is, it came recently actually to me. It's a company called Compliant. Some of you might have heard of them or not. But they've, I want to do a test with them. We haven't decided anything yet. But basically, we had all of our governance on our websites, etc. done, right? We've got the team around it for our websites. We know what's on our tags. But from a media standpoint, when we buy our media through DSPs, you technically don't know what that site holds. So I'm going to use a bad example here today. But if we have like a news site or something, right, they're likely to have a lot of data leakage on their websites. So if that specific site is held liable for not being compliant with GDPR, and you're serving your ad on that, you could theoretically be linked to it, and then you could be liable as well.
Yeah.
Right? So what Compliant does is exactly what we do on our side, but for the media buyers. Right? So that's what's interesting now, where before it was kind of just like, we don't have control over that, so we're just going to ignore it. Versus now, there's companies out there like Compliant who are allowing us to do this now so that we can make better informed decisions as to where we actually buy our media. So yes, there's that. Amy was talking about kind of efficiency on our media, but it's about effectiveness as well, right? Because you want to get to the right audience, you want to do the right thing for our consumers, but at the same time, we should be wary of where we're delivering our media as well.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting, just the concept of having new considerations about the ways in which the overall ecosystem works as a result of this kind of mindset shift to be focusing more on consumers and consumers' privacy and what's best for them has caused a process that you've been engaged in for a long time to now be looked at in a different way. So I think that's very interesting. Any other kind of final thoughts? Anything kind of core takeaways, key aspects that you think have led to or people should keep in mind in order to be able to be successful in these privacy-centric marketing transformations?
I think two things. Be persistent, right? You're going to hit walls with different people. I keep using lawyers here. My wife's a lawyer, so I can say that openly. But be persistent. Explain to them why you want to do this. You're not breaking GDPR or CCPA laws or legislations. But at the same time, keep that test and learn mentality. You have to do that because with new legislations coming in, you can use the US in itself, right? Yeah, CCPA is one, but then you're getting all the other states which are very specific and different and nuanced, and that's going to happen globally, right? So you just need to be confident that we want to be able to test this, and making sure that everything just connects. All your systems and platforms should be talking to each other, right? And that's key here for us to move forward, especially with server-side tag management, right? For that to be a success, your systems should be talking to each other and be able to use the same language, right? I think it was touched upon again earlier today, but that language is very important, whether it's cross platforms or cross teams. Right? You just have to be aligned across everything.
Yeah.
So that would be my two key takeaways, I think, for today.
Interesting. Amazing. Well, thank you very, very much. Lots of really good insights there and some core takeaways, I believe, for how organizations can be successful. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So, those are all of the sessions that we've had today. But want to just kind of underscore and bring us back to some of those three pillars that we talked about at the very beginning of the day. As we're thinking about privacy-centric marketing, as we're thinking about the keys in order to be able to be successful in this new environment, meet and exceed those heightened levels of user expectations, while at the same time respecting those higher levels of expectations for privacy. First, respecting user privacy. It's what Adam talked about initially. placing consumers at the center of that privacy strategy and really approaching it through that lens. Second, that first-party ownership of first-party data. Thinking about even our third-party platforms like GA4 that Nadal talked about, and still being conscious of the fact that that's our first-party data. We can assert control over it. We can start to be much more intentful with what we collect, how we're using that. Leaning on some of those different technologies and some of those new solutions like consent mode, as discussed with Jaime, and starting to really work cross-functionally in order to be able to bring those solutions to light, test those types of solutions, learn from them, and then scale them throughout our business. The concept of first-party ownership is central to the server-side tag management piece that Tyler talked about today, and that being a technical mechanism via which you can collect, distribute data, and really unlock a lot of opportunities that we have in order to be able to generate better insights and really start making decisions and taking actions from those insights, from that intimate understanding of our consumers. And then finally, with Amy's discussion about multi-partner orchestration, working with the various different teams externally as well as internally in order to be able to be successful, allow people to do and teams to do and partners to do the pieces that they're best at so that we can be our best as well. And then Shaafi finally going through some of those specific, more tactical recommendations and strategies in order to be successful.